been trying to trim off a few pounds. I don't eat as much meat anymore because, you know, it's just healthier not to. And
Oh, good.
so it looks
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Very good. By the way, well, we started live, Thom, just in the past few seconds, but I just want to say that you had posted something about a resolution going forward, and it included a matter of diet, and it inspired me. And so just thank you for that. It's hard for anyone to know how what we do may impact others, but I don't read many posts, and I read yours, and and I've probably drawn from it more than 10 times.
wow.
You know, plant-based foods, and being a good father and a good husband and a good friend, and it was just a beautiful resolution that I've thought about often. Thom, if I could just start, where were you born?
I was born in a little town called Freeport, Illinois, which is about 100 miles west of Chicago and about 20 miles south of the Wisconsin border.
Mm-hmm. And how many people, well, at that time, how many people lived in Freeport, and were you in the town itself?
Yeah, I grew up in city limits, and I think when I was a kid, the population was closer to 30,000, and it's now about 23,000, so it's dropped considerably.
Mm-hmm. And did you live in Freeport until you went to join the Marines, until you were 17?
Yep, I joined the Marines right out of high school. I graduated from high school in June and joined the Marines in August at age 7 for 4 years.
And your father, your late father, he was always a fireman?
Well, he actually joined the Marines at age 17 too. We have similar birthdays and everything, and it's kind of history repeating itself a little bit. And when he got out of the Marines, I think he worked as a mechanic for a while, and then he got onto the fire department, which, was a great job for him because he could work one 24-hour shift, have 2 days off, and he had like a water softener plumbing type of business on the side. And, it was just a pretty good life that he had going for him.
Mm-hmm. And did your mom work?
My mom primarily was a homemaker. She stayed at home and made sure that we were fed and kept the house. And, she babysitted a lot. She would varnish furniture and do different things. She took some classes, community college. And, later on when we were older, she started doing, jobs outside of
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how language, of course she worked. Who wouldn't, you know what I mean? It's like she worked at home, she raised children, she took courses, it's like we phrase, did she work? Yes. Anyway, we need to expand our notion of what and calculate what really work is, which is everything under the sun, in order to grow and take care of others and to have
and raising children. I mean, because both of us have been more or less single fathers at points in our lives, and it's a hard job. And
oh my God,
raising 3 boys, I can't speak for my other brothers, but I know I was not exactly an easy child to raise.
Yeah. And
so
where are you among the 3? Oh yeah,
I'm the oldest
of the 3.
one.
I'm sorry to ask this question, Thom, but how old were you when your father passed away?
I was 28, and it's interesting because the day I left for the Peace Corps was my 28th birthday, and that's the last day I saw my father alive. And when I said goodbye to go to, the pre-service training or whatever that we had. And, 3 weeks later, while being in Morocco at the stage, I got a call that my father had passed. So the Peace Corps sent me home. And it turns out there was another volunteer from the group that was ahead of us that her father died too. So we flew back together. It was just interesting, but sad and shocking, and, a whole range of emotions, and I spent like 9 at home, for the funeral and everything. They said I could stay up to 30 days, but I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I went back to training and finished the training.
I see. And how old were you when you realized you wanted to join the Marines at 17, as your dad did? When did you know you wanted to join the Marines?
Well, that's a great question. My dad took us on a 3-week family vacation when I was about 6 years old. And part of that vacation was in California. And we went to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego, and we were going through the great gate. And I remember this Marine in a uniform. And I remember asking my dad, like, how much money does it cost to join the Marines? And he said it was free. And I said, I want to do that. And that's when I always kind of knew that that's what I was going to do.
How old were you when that happened?
6 years old.
Oh my goodness. And so, I've been listening to, there's a radio station in Montana that has been interviewing Vietnam veterans. And I mean, just, you can imagine the stories, but I just want to ask you, when you joined the Marines, describe a little bit of what boot camp was like to you, and where did you go, and what are your strongest recollections of your Marine experience?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, Marine boot camp is a very unique experience. It's like if you join the Army and then switch to the Marines, you have to go to their boot camp, the Marine Corps boot camp. If you join the Marines and then join the Army, you don't have to go to their boot camp, which is interesting. But just to give you a flavor of what the boot camp was, there's a story I like to tell. We were standing in formation at attention, and the sun was really hot. I mean, it's San Diego, and we were waiting for a general to come by and inspect us. And when they come by to inspect, we have this thing called inspection arms, where if they stop in front of you, you have to initiate this movement with your rifle and then give it to them, and they check it and throw it back to you. Well, we were standing out there for like 4 hours in the sun, and every once in a while they put us at parade rest. But I started getting ants were crawling on me, and you can't move, you can't wipe them off or anything like that. So I just had to stand there and take that with these ants starting to crawl all over me. And I was squeezing the tip of my rifle where the flash suppressor is, and I broke the skin. I didn't know that. But when I did the inspection arms and gave the general the rifle, when he threw it back to me, there was like this gleam in his eye, which struck me as odd. And I couldn't figure out what it meant. I mean, there was, I don't know, how you just feel something? Well, after that, we went back to the barracks and we had to clean our rifles. And when I looked at my rifle, there was blood all over it. And it was because I cut my finger because of those ants crawling. But that's how disciplined you had to be, because if I would have moved or what, I mean, the consequences would have been, grave in terms of, they exercise you until you can't move, and there's a lot of yelling and screaming. So I didn't move.
When I mean, now, as you said, you're in your 50s, and you had spent 4 years in the Marines, but you also spent 4 years in the Peace Corps.
That's right.
And so, which do you feel more formative as to who you are today? What frame of reference, the Marine or the Peace Corps, do you find yourself drawing from more often?
Well, I'm obviously a very mixed up individual, war, peace. No, no, I would say they're two very different experiences that had major impacts on my life. Like, so the Marines, obviously, I was 17, I was still, maturing, and That had a huge influence, but it was positive in a lot of ways because I needed that discipline and structure. So that was good. And I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to experience other cultures. That was a huge draw, in the Peace Corps, that was very attractive as well. It's like, okay, I can immerse myself in another country, learn the language and the culture, and really feel what it's like to live in such a different world than in which I grew up in. And Morocco definitely provided that experience. And it was a very impactful experience. I mean, to say which one impacted me more, I'd probably have to say the Peace Corps, but they're both very powerful experiences. And I think that's what attracted me to both of them. It's kind of like you're really just putting yourself into these situations that they are going to transform you. And you know that. You don't go in the Marines without expecting to be, transformed in some way. And the Peace Corps too. I mean, it's just such a major change that it has a profound effect. But I guess I'm attracted to that. Like I thrive off that kind of life change. If I get bored, I gotta change it up. I just have to do something.
Mm-hmm. And of course, academia has been a constant, an important part of your professional life. Would you say academia, what light has academia shed? It's an analytical experience, and it allows us to understand occurrences or phenomena around the world from multiple points of view. What light has academia shed for you on these profound experiences in your life? I mean, did academia make you feel differently or look at your Marine Corps experience differently? Did academia give a certain level of dimension or meaning to your Peace Corps experience? Well, what does academia mean in how you view these experiences in your life?
Well, it's interesting because like academia to me, I mean, I think before I even joined the military, I really had a love for reading, which, I wasn't a stellar student in high school, but I loved to read different books. And then while I was in the military, I continued reading books. And, of course, that's an experience and you're learning, but this love for learning, like a lot of times now we look at a liberal arts education and, some professors feel like that's being threatened because the purpose of it is to really expand your mind and broaden your, outlook and critical thinking skills and everything, which is critically important, as opposed to just training somebody to do like a particular line of work. And I'm so attracted to that learning piece, which, like, as you say, how does that impact it provided me avenues to reflect on all my experiences, which, trying to make sense of the world for yourself and where you fit into it, that was very exciting to me. And I mean, I think once you unlock that love of learning, and academia can help train, habits of your mind to really be able to do research more effectively and efficiently, and that critical thing. It's just such an amazing thing that I just loved. Like I'm constantly reading stuff all the time in many different fields and areas. I'll read medical journals if that's what the information I want to get into, psychological journal, or books, like Carl Jung and, stuff. I mean, it's just, there's so much out there. And, to bring this back to Morocco, what I loved about my experience in Morocco was that I felt like I could live there for the rest of my life and still have that, stimulation in terms of, not only do you want to learn Arabic, but maybe Berber and, French and, so there's the language piece, but then the cultural thing and how you start really feeling like, part of that. And just there's so much to learn and do. And like the work that you're doing is proof that there's just amazing things that are being done. And it's just exciting. So I don't know, that was kind of
No. No, wonderful. Let me ask you this. So you left the service, the Marine service at 21, and then you joined the Peace Corps at 28. Describe those interim years. And when did Peace Corps become part of your horizon, within those 20s that you were in?
Yeah,
What did you immediately do to the Marine Corps? Go ahead.
well, right after the Marine Corps, I went home to my hometown, Freeport, and I started working at a cheese factory, and it was the night shift, and I hated it. I realized there's no way I can work at night. But the governor of Illinois at that time signed a bill that gave all veterans free tuition. And so even though I had thought about going to college, I really didn't think it through how I was going to pay for all that. But then there was no excuse for not going. I mean, it was free, right? So I started taking classes at a community college, but I was back in my hometown, and it just slipping into old habits and everything. And my parents really didn't want me in the house. I mean, I left years ago, and they were like, we need to get him out of here. So I eventually moved to Colorado, where one of my aunts lived, and I started doing construction work. And then I worked as a garbage man, and which I liked because I was working outside. It was good exercise. Colorado's beautiful, and it was great. But a lot of things happened. I could tell you long stories about that. But one day I remember watching a commercial on TV, and it was about the Peace Corps. And it showed some guy like hoeing a field, like in the Philippines, and it said the toughest job you'll ever love. As a Marine, you say it's a tough job. I mean, that's attractive to me. So I called the 800 number, and I said, hey, I'm interested in joining the Marines. And they said, do you have a college education? I said, no. And they said, well, we really prefer people, if they have a college education. I said, all right, well, I'll call you back in a couple of years. And so it turns out I went back to Illinois, and I had 3 veteran roommates that I grew up with as my roommates. And so we had a house together, and it was just a great experience, fun. To water ski from April to October, but I focused on school. I treated it like a job, and that love of learning kicked in. And then when I got close to the end, maybe my junior year, I started exploring the Peace Corps and applied, and eventually got in. So
What was your major?
my major was Recreation, Park, and Tourism Administration, which, like when I first got there, I didn't know what my major was going to be. And I saw a picture of a brochure of that major with students backpacking. And I'm like, that's my major, But what I really love about that major.
Yeah.
I mean, because I love to be outside. I love, I loved climbing mountains and all that kind of thing. And to really learn how to, hone those skills was good. But it's also the deep philosophical underpinnings of that field that like I got more and more excited about it, and realized like this really is what I like to do. Because when you think about leisure in your life, it relates to free choice, and how that how that impacts your life and what you do, and that freedom that you experience through leisure, because you can't force somebody to experience leisure, And so to me, that's kind of like, and there's philosophical and religious context to that, health and well-being. You look at any field, leisure and recreation can relate to that in some way. And researchers have explored so many different dimensions of that. It's just a thing to me anyway.
Yeah. Is there anything to this that when you were 6 years old, you saw an advertisement related to the Marines? When you were watching TV, you saw that 800 number for the Peace Corps. To determine your major, you saw that brochure for Parks and Recreation. Are you given messages through advertisement that somehow penetrate and feel right, and you pursue them? Has that ever happened again, where you saw a message or an advertisement and end up to be a direction you took?
Yeah, I guess I'm impressionable with these advertisements, but no, well, like you first have to know about something to be influenced by it. And,
Yeah, right.
and I would
Right now
say,
you're associate provost. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
right.
No, go
Well,
ahead, Thom.
related to your point is when I was in grad school, this was after many other experiences and jobs, but I started looking for a job as a professor, and I found an advertisement in the Chronicle of Higher Education for a position in Vermont for,
Yes.
recreation program. And so I applied to that and a couple other ones. And when I went to Vermont to interview for that position, I fell in love with the place. Vermont, I always pictured as a beautiful place, and it definitely is. And I just really enjoyed the campus and the people, and it just felt right. The only issue is that the pay was really low in comparison to what, I could have had in Illinois, and that was important, but I just had to do it, and it's really been a transformative experience in and of itself,
Yeah.
I'm very glad that I made that decision.
How many years have you been in Vermont?
I've been here, this is my 12th year now, starting out.
Amazing. And how's Amanda doing? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to just jump around and the viewers may not know, but Amanda's Thom's wonderful daughter.
Yeah, Binti. Yeah, she's doing great. One of the reasons why I picked Vermont as well was because the benefits, even though the salary was low, the benefits were really good. And one of those benefits was free tuition for your dependents if it's in a Vermont state school, including the University of Vermont. So Amanda, she's had her own journeys. She moved out to Seattle for a couple of years, and she finally realized she wanted to go back to school. So she came back, and she's going to the University of Vermont right now, but she did some courses at the Community College of Vermont in advance and in preparation for that. But she's doing awesome. It's
good.
an amazing thing to see her grow and mature.
Yeah.
I can tell she has that fire for learning now that I have. It's really, I like it.
Mm-hmm. I'm just, my memory of her is when we were in Casablanca and you were director of the Siemens Club, and you had that truck and you had that car seat for her, and you look over and you'd say, "My little buddy," to your daughter,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that today. Just think about this, Thomas. And you talked about, we're both single parents, but I was thinking about how and at that time I wasn't married, and without, but you, well, maybe I'm jumping around in the story too much, but you came back to Morocco after your Peace Corps service. You assumed a job of a very important responsibility with a lot of employees, which had an important mission too. And as a single dad, taking care of your daughter full time, and it just in another country.
Right.
And then of course, what you just described in Vermont, you wanted to, you created a context where she can go to school at any time. I just think anyway, it's just remarkable, yourself as the person, as a father. I just can't imagine in the late 90s being able to assume the responsibilities that you had assumed, and that you were, just thriving as a father, as a director of. Let me ask you this: when you look back at your directorship of the Siemens Club in Casablanca, how does that relate to your overall Morocco experience? You were a Peace Corps volunteer for 4 years. I believe you went you studied in between Peace Corps and the Siemens.
That's right.
You go. What was your major that time?
Well, actually, my major was the same. I went back to my alma mater and did the master's degree extension of that program, which was, I was married at the time to Fatima, who is from Morocco, Midelt, from Eitz Maragad. But yeah, it was an amazing time. That was a 2-year stint with United Seamen's Service. And I would say that was probably one of the most intense 2 years of my life. And partially because of what you mentioned, my wife at the time she stayed in the States for the most part to finish her degree. And so I had Amanda with me because the thinking was, I had a housekeeper there, I had a driver, I had people that could, help while I managed this Seafarer Center. But I was working like 80 hours a week. And I had an apartment right there at the Seafarer Center, but it was like very intense. I supervised 22 people in Arabic, which was a challenge because even though I can speak it fairly well, it's still hard. And, then the nature of the business, it's a bar and restaurant for truckers and sailors, but the mission was to provide a safe haven for these international seafarers that would come, and we'd provide transportation services and arrange sporting activities and different things for them. But all of that, and then trying to raise my daughter was hard. And I used to load her up in the Land Rover and put her in her little car seat, and I'd take her to like McDonald's or something because they had a playground. And I used to call her the Wazira al-Kharijia, the Minister of like Foreign Affairs or something, because I would take her out. And I don't know, it was just funny, but yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, which and to think too that it had a profound effect on my life, because when I came to Morocco in 1998 and you were a director, I came with the hope of starting the High Atlas Foundation. And you said, apply for this job as Associate Peace Corps Director. And I said, no. And you said, yes. And here's the application. You
Right.
even had the application on your computer. And so, okay, Thom, I'll do it. And of course, you made me so comfortable, but you were my provider as well as your daughter's provider. And thank you for that. And even when I was able to be offered the job, I still said no. And then you said yes. And I took it. And when I look back, how critical that was for my life, even though it was a hard period, because as new, was that your first management experience as director of the Seamen's Club?
In terms of that level of management experience and responsibility was probably one of my
And so we, as new managers, it's natural to make mistakes, and the learning curve is quite high. And so was mine. But it gave me a national sort of look of what development was in Morocco, and I needed that to be able to, start the foundation. But without you, I don't know where I may not have even gone tomorrow. Where would I have even been? Where could I have be? Where could I be? And not just be, but be encouraged.
Well, if I remember right, you came over with a one-way ticket. And a big bag of cheap jewelry that you, we don't need to get into that, but no, but it was
do you know how many bags of jewelry I've brought since then? Every trip, trip. Which really goes to show where would we be without others, Right. But I do want to give out a shout out to Fatima as well, because Amanda's mom, because I don't know, does she still work at Caterpillar?
She does not work at Caterpillar anymore. She's currently, I think, taking a hiatus from work, and I believe she went to Morocco just a couple days ago.
Oh, okay. Well, she introduced the High Atlas Foundation to Caterpillar, and the Caterpillar was an early supporter of I believe it was tree planting, and anyway, and right. Fatima made that possible. So, okay, and what? So you had the 2 years as director of Siemens, and then what happened after that?
Well, so after that, it was interesting because the headquarters of the United Seamen's Service was at the World Trade Center. And I went back to that to help them with their annual report. but I also took some vacation back in Illinois, and I noticed this job at my alma mater, Western Illinois University, for the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs, and it was a job related to Peace Corps. It was called the Peace Corps Fellows Program. So I applied for that job, and it was interesting because I was out in Manhattan with some of the guys from the United Seaman Service office, and they were telling me that the boss was thinking about offering me a job at the headquarters. But I did some cost analysis and realized I'd have to make a lot more money than what they were going to offer me to take that job, to make it, equivalent to what, I was already making. And I couldn't do it. And the next day at a phone booth at the bottom of the World Trade Center, I had to return a call to Western Illinois University about that job. And they offered me the position. I didn't even negotiate and accepted it. It turns out they offered me too much money and they had to promote 2 other people, but that was not my problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
so I started that job, and that was a spectacular experience too. I mean, I worked with great people. We were all involved with doing rural community development around the state of Illinois in various capacities. My role was to basically place return Peace Corps volunteers in 11-month internships with host sites around the state at these rural small towns. And, it was tricky because we were saying, to communities, if you want one of these Peace Corps fellows, they're trained, they're mature, they've had these experiences, we're giving them all this development training, but we have to pay them a stipend, and the cost to you will be $20,000. And that's a lot of money for a small rural town. So I would to sell that to them and the benefits of it. And the reality is that as soon as they finished their internship, they were on the job market, and a lot of them were hired by those same communities for like 3 times as much, because they were like, you're doing a great job. I mean, we need you.
Amazing.
And even if they didn't get hired, a lot of them went on to great careers. And I mean, it's just awesome to see them too, and where they've gone. I did that job for 6 years.
6 years. And then from there you went to Vermont?
From there, I went to the University of Illinois for some more graduate work. And then I went to Vermont after 3
I see. And I'm sorry to ask, what's the name of your university now where you're associate provost?
Northern Vermont University.
Yeah. And how many students what's the student body
Well,
number?
we have 2 campuses, and I think we're about, I don't know, 15 to 1,800 students right now between the 2 campuses. I could be off. It could be more than that, maybe 1,000, depending on who you count. But part of wanting to reach out to you and speak together is to reconnect, and we're also trying to discover what the Peace Corps, what the Morocco experience means in terms of a life projectile, the course of life. And so you've had, as leading the Peace Corps Fellows Program in Illinois, you've had these huge major experiences following your time in Morocco. When you look at the arc of your professional life, your personal life, and I say to you Morocco, and I say to you Peace Corps, how has it sort of molded your journey, your life's journey? What does Morocco mean to you in terms of what has become of you? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an intense question. I mean, I really feel like Morocco has made such an indelible mark on my life. I mean, it's almost inexplicable. It's such a part of who I am. And after I left the United Seaman Service, I remember getting off the plane in New York, and there were people there on that little, ramp, going into the building. And, they knew we had just gotten back from overseas, and they were welcome to the United States or something they said. And my response to them was in Arabic, because I was so accustomed to speaking in Arabic. And I responded like, ah, shukran, akhoya, or something. I don't know what I said, but this guy behind me started laughing, and I looked around. He said, I know exactly how you feel. And it was just like, it was stepping back into a different world, but you still weren't there yet, you know? And I look at the power of that experience, the people I've met. You know, my daughter is a product of my marriage to a Moroccan woman, and you know, and it's just, I'm inextricably linked to it. Our relationship, you know, and the High Atlas Foundation and everything. It's just been, you know, such an amazing thing. And I would love to move back to Morocco. My wife Deb, and I don't think would go for that, but you know, you never know. I gotta coax her into going there. Maybe I can get her to fall in love with it and spend more time there. But I certainly plan on returning or doing what I can. It's, you know, as the opportunities arrive. You know, right now I'm pretty embroiled with what I do, but I would say, but the product of all that experience has given me a perspective that I can bring to my day-to-day life and how I interpret what's going on in the world. And it's just immense.
Mm-hmm. If boy, as you were speaking, just so you know, you triggered other thoughts. I guess I'll start with this one. If how would you, in terms of professional outcomes or results or achievement, do you feel you're done with Morocco? And if you were, how would that make you feel? If your Morocco journey it remains what it is today, which is profound and you know, so major and sincere and meaningful, but it remains as it is, would that be satisfying, or do you feel a need that story continue and have another chapter?
I definitely feel like there is another chapter, and I want that. How that would shake out, I have no idea. You know, like I said, you know, I'm married, and my wife is from Vermont, and she loves Vermont and has no desire to leave. But like I said, you just never know what's going to happen in life or what opportunities, short or long term, could come up. But you know, one thing that sticks in my mind, which was a great experience in Morocco, I went to Tanja, and met, you know, people at the American Legation Museum. And, you know, I didn't know there was a secret back room. So back during World War II, there was a guy that and his wife were these secret service officers, and they were transmitting data about German troop movements in Tangier because it was an international city. And the person that introduced me, or well, was showing me the tour, you might know her, Rosemary, and Joey was her son. I forget her last name. She's like, do you want to meet the guy that, you know, was the spy or whatever? I said, yeah. So we went to this guy's house named Gordon Brown, and his wife were both there, and they were in their 90s. And, you know, it was so interesting to talk to him because he had first gone to Morocco like in the 1920s. And he said when he first went to Morocco in the 20s, and he was like from Harvard and doing research and stuff, he said you know, expatriates there said, oh, it's too late. Morocco's changed so much. You should have been here 30 years ago. I mean, and you know,
Can
so
you believe that
to me, and it's just,
oh my God.
But I always look at him and his wife living in this villa in Tanja, you know, and that's where they decided to end their life, you know, not end their life, but, you know, retire and live out their remaining years.
Yeah.
And there's just something like that in my mind, like, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be doing that too.
Yeah. That's, you know, it's funny, Thom. I've been hit with that emotion too, you know, seeing that kind of possibility of how to spend, you know, the later years, and how attractive and pleasant and peaceful it looks. Let me ask you this: is there another? So perhaps the Morocco journey continues in the kind of way you described. Is there another sort of professional pathway different from Morocco, other than Morocco, that you feel that, you know, it's also undone or incomplete, and that you would like to see sort of reach a new level or a new beginning or a new area of growth or outcome that is maybe as deep or that's meaningful to you in a different way, maybe in academia or another walk of life? Do you feel incomplete in another dimension as well?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I was teaching for Northern Vermont University, which was then Linden State College, we merged with our sister college, Johnson State College, to form Northern Vermont University. When I was teaching, after about 6 years, I mean, I loved the students and I do enjoy teaching, but I felt like it was too repetitious. Like there was patterns that evolved, like fall, spring, you do this, and summer, and I just felt like I needed a change. Well, I applied for this assistant academic dean position, and I ended up getting the position, and it's been 6 years now that I've been in this position. But the difference is that I am not bored in any way. It's just immense, the responsibility and the job and the nuances in so many different directions. And I feel like there's a lot of rewards to help students solve complex problems. And, today we have a lot of students that suffer from anxiety and depression. There's financial issues. I met a student where, because of the opioid epidemic, his own mother stole his identity. And, so we have to really work with our students, that need help to solve these problems. And, to me, I find that challenging, but rewarding. And there's a whole host of other things. But right now with this COVID pandemic, we got to pull together as a community and really survive this thing. And so in a other aspect of that, I see myself at some point, even if I'm retired, to be involved with some form of community development, because we have a lot of continual building, but rebuilding to do as well. And, I think this is going to change everything. And there's so much going on. The stakes are so high. And so our society needs people that are willing to throw in a hand, and especially people that have skill sets and leadership that are able to make things happen.
Yeah. When you think of your work 6 months ago, and I know you're working from home now, but when you think of the sort of the tasks and things you had to figure out 6 months ago versus what preoccupies your mind and the things you need to work through today, is it relatable? Are the issues that you're dealing with today are really unto their own, that it's almost like a whole new job?
It definitely is a whole new job. It's, everybody had to go remote instruction in the spring. And, there were a lot of things that needed to be ironed out with that. And we did extensive outreach to our students to see how they were doing. And now we're gearing up for the fall, and we're trying to, adjust schedules and teaching formats to meet the need that we're facing. And it's just a lot of work that we normally wouldn't do on top of what we need to do anyway, which is already extensive. So it's just almost overwhelming in a sense. But that's where I think also, like, an experience in Peace Corps and other things in my past have helped me, because there was a time where I would get really stressed out by this stuff, to the point of just, where you can't function as optimally as you would like. And now, I think because of those experiences, I'm much more patient.
Yeah.
When you have to wait for a bus for 9 hours in the cold, you develop some patience.
Yeah, you sure do.
Yeah.
I've been listening to some, I won't say which governors, but we're given a lot of press conferences because of, and one of the statements I've heard is the incredible level of hope and responsiveness of the people, and flexibility, and people rising to the occasion. And also the governor remarked of the incredible level of disappointment, and how we as a community or parts of a community didn't rise, and the difficulty that, the inflexibility. You're part of a dynamic, there's so many constituent parts to a university community. Have you seen both sides of that? Have you seen beauty and just great difficulty, and just stemming from different parties that are part of this process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say by and large here in Vermont, people have been very thoughtful and considerate when it comes to this virus and adjusting to what we need to do. We've had other challenges, like our former chancellor had plans to possibly close down our university and a couple others. And the academic community just banded together to push back on that. And it's clear that these institutions have, we're talking over $100 million of economic input to the area, which is, to remove that would devastate these rural communities. We have to be a part of the solution going forward, and that's what we're positioning ourselves to do. And so I would say, yeah, there's been some setbacks in terms of the way some people have approached things, but we're pulling together and we're going to get through it. And Vermonters are tough and resilient and naturally socially distanced in a way, because it's the population density is low. But it's a great place to be given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Not easy, but we're I think in good shape in terms of comparing to other places really struggling right now.
Thom, I'm going to ask you a question that also occurred to me before speaking to you. I remember some stories you told me about your dad and this sort of innate sense of fairness and sort of justice that he had. And when we look at the sort of the racial issues going on, how do you think he would have reacted? What do you think, when he sees them, what do you think he would have said, or, I don't know, but that thought had come to mind because those stories you did share have stuck with me. What would he say?
Well, I would love to be able to ask him to hear that response for sure. But I believe that, my dad was a very, very intelligent, thoughtful guy, and I mean, he was an avid reader. He didn't go to college, but he, amazing IQ and just a very good human being. And he grew up in a time that was culturally different, where, I mean, I can't even say racism was worse, from what I see right now. But, I think it was more normalized in some way in the community I grew up in. But he had a transformational experience about that. There was a African-American firefighter that, was hired. And I think a lot of the firefighters thought that he wouldn't perform as well as, like something because of racism and bias, maybe thought that he wouldn't do well. But they hired him. And one of the big things with firefighters is, like, if you go into a fire, you don't come out until you're called out by the captain, And this particular gentleman, because part of that, if you're afraid and you run out, they thought he might be afraid and not cover their back. Well, it turned out to be the opposite. The building was dangerous and they had to pull everybody out, and he kind of refused to come out a little bit because he was busy doing something. I don't know. I can't remember all the details, but they were like, you need to get out of there. And he came out. But what that did was showed those other firefighters that he's not afraid and he's there to work. And they respected that. And my dad really respected that and had him over to the house one day. And to me, that was kind of like, wow, that was the first time I saw that, and I really appreciated that. And I think my dad, he didn't, and he never really talked about politics to me. So I have no idea his, deep political views or anything, but I think by and large, he just didn't like it, because not everybody lives their lives through the lens of politics, it seems like we're constantly being divided as this or that. And a lot of people don't think of it that way, you know, and they just try to do the right thing. And I think that's what my dad was about.
Yeah. Well, what's his first name?
Thom as well.
Thom. Okay. Born the same day, joined the Marines both at 17.
Well, we were born in the same month, not the same day.
Same month. Both joined the Marines at 17, and I have a firstborn son named after. So I didn't realize yet you're Thomas Anderson Jr.
Well, I'm actually the 6th.
Okay. Unbelievable.
Oh, actually the 5th. I think I'm the 5th. They'll count these two.
That's something else. You know, I know that you're, and I'm going to sort of wind down from here, but I do want to ask you this. I know what I'm touched. I appreciate very much what you said about, you know, what Morocco means, and that you feel like it's not over, but life, you know, has its own say. And what would you say to people, I guess, like ourselves that have served in Morocco, you know, maybe came back to Morocco, but may have the opportunity to come back again? I mean, we can through the Farmer-to-Farmer program, the Hylas Foundation can support former volunteers like us, Peace Corps, to come back again, to, you know, help them, you know, enable them to fly over, enable them, I mean, in a different, you know, when we can fly, but enable them to continue to give to Morocco. And what would you say to former volunteers that may be on the fence for that? Because you did come back to Morocco as a former volunteer, and you did stay another 2 years, and you did continue to give back, and you had another, you said you called it a very intense, one of the most intense experiences in your life. What would you say to former volunteers who may be considering coming back again, but still not sure of whether to just go for it or not?
Well, if they're considering it, they just need to just do it, because how can you go wrong with that? It's like to go back to Morocco and be a part of some sort of, you know, in maybe a rural community doing the farmer-to-farmer thing or wherever it is, and just to have, you know, that experience and to be able to share of yourself. But also, as we know, we get more out of it than we give. You know, the gift really is the giving and coming back to us. You know, it's just such a powerful experience. And I'll tell you, I mean, you know, if your life circumstance allows you to do that, because not everybody can just quit their job or they have family responsibility, but if their life experiences allows you to do that, do it. Because the world still needs not only that technical, you know, expertise, but also that understanding between us so that we can grow those relationships, because that's where I think the magic of Peace Corps really is. It's about those friendships and relationships and just understanding other people and other cultures, to realize at the end of the day, we're all the same. We have the same concerns, same fears, everything. And to share that with others is just like, to me, is liberating. And I just miss it. I miss the food. I miss the people, because to me, Morocco, like Moroccans have such a great sense of humor, you know, and I even think my personality changes when I speak in Arabic, and I would say silly stuff that they found funny, and it, you know, it just was a lot of laughter, and I just miss that, you know. So go for it. People need to do it.
You know, I really much feel what you said. I feel like I'm a funnier person in Arabic, more pleasant, more. Can you imagine me funny in English? No, but let me sort of end with this. It's a sort of, it's hard to even describe the times that you're in the United States, and what the United States is dealing with, and just all the different forces going on. I guess I want to ask, how hopeful are you, and could you ever imagine a time, or do you see yourself even potentially part of creating a time where the ideals of the Peace Corps, where the ideals of community are part of our, it's part of our leadership, part of our political discourse, part of our political processes. Do you see the infiltration of people-driven change and ideas and all those things that we've given ourselves over to in Morocco? Are you hopeful that it could be more and more the norm of our lives in the United States?
I'm hopeful, and I think that's the only way to go forward, really, because it's got to be from the ground up. It's clear that the economic models that we have around the world are not serving everybody, and causing environmental damage and all these issues. But when you bring it back to the local level, people will identify solutions, will solve things and work together at the same time. We can't wait around for somebody to come in on a white horse to save our communities. We have to be that white horse ourselves and really move it forward. So I'm hopeful that that can happen. And I would say that's what I really love about Vermont, because there's so many innovative small businesses and co-ops and all this stuff that really builds that community. It's exciting, and I'm just glad to be here.
Yeah.
And I miss Morocco too.
Yeah. So I think I don't see, I should be on Facebook looking at comments, but I'm on Zoom. And so I just want to express to whoever may be listening that just thank you for being part of our conversation, listening in on it. And I just want to wish everyone well. Thom, thank you for giving us the time. I'm glad that we had this chance to, share again. I could be doing this all day with you, Thom. Of course, in thinking about speaking with you today, I also remembered the most precious moments in my time in Morocco, and you were there. And so just thank you for being an angel in my life, to make things not just joyful, but also always moving forward to better and better things. And so thank you for being an essential part, a beautiful part, a most special part of my Morocco journey. Well,
thank you as well.
So be well, everyone. Thank you, Thom. A lot of people say hi to us. I really enjoy hearing you. There's some comments, and they're calling the story inspiring, your story inspiring, which it is. It's funny how we never know the consequences of really what we do. And who would have known that Morocco would be what it means to you, and it means to me, and it means to the people that we spoke to and will speak to. But Morocco, where would we be? And I shudder to think of that life without Maghrib,
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Shukran, Habibi.
How barakallahu fikum, really. And so we're going to sign off now. Thomas Anderson, someone dear to me forever in this life. Thomas Anderson, everyone. Thank you.
Islama.
Islama. Bye-bye.